down to Common Core, I realized like we're throwing you guys in. You're like, hey, here, go be a staff in a type of unit most like 95% of you have never been in before or never seen, in positions you don't know anything about, and just like go do a process you've never done before. So we kind of needed to give you a starting point. So I built a class on staff roles, what you should be doing, where we should start, and how we kind of act as a staff officer. There's a lot of you in here who be like, I don't need this, I've done this. It's true. You've been a staff. Like probably my very super unscientific polling is that. Oh, Brave Rifles to you too, Captain Martin. But my super unscientific polling is that about a third to a half of you have been on staff before.
You got it.
The other 2/3 to a half, about half that has been a staff primary. So we're looking at. And you're all probably going to go be either staff primaries, like a battalion S4, or what my EXO referred to as a little P primaries. You got the capital Ps, that's like S4, S3, S2, and you have like the little Ps that are the staff players that make as big an impact as a primary. So an assistant S3 or a plans officer on brigade staff. There are a lot of different ways you can go with this. And all of it matters. So a lot of you have just been like, the assistant to the assistant regional manager. You were just like the slide monkey. You would make like the super basic slides. You would make the coffee and the talk. But now, as a captain, you're about to go to brigade, and it's going to be a whole different world. You're expected to function as a high, just more of a high op tempo and more responsibility and less oversight. So that's kind of what we're going into here. But again, if this is all old hat to you, well, great. But there's a third to a half of the class that it is not. After this, we'll roll into step 1 of MDMP. I expect to be done here no later than 10. So today's not a bad day. Okay, moving on to slide 2. So we've got the agenda. Here's what we're going to go over. You can read for yourselves. Okay, so starting off, staff responsibilities. Hey, before I go into this, a couple rules of engagement that'll be this kind of standing for all of my lectures. If you have a question, please type it in the chat window. I will answer. It just gets it gets hard to recognize who's who, especially when I don't know 90% of you in here. And people talk over each other, so please just type it in. I will see it. I may not get to it immediately, but I will get to it pretty quick. And then once I start addressing your question, feel free to turn your mic on, and we can go back and forth instead of me being like, "Does that answer your question?" And then I wait 10 seconds for you to say, "Yes, it does," and then we go back. Right? You can just turn on your mic at that point. We can talk about it, and then we can go back to mute. But other than that, please keep your mic muted because it does get a little difficult when I start hearing rap coming over while I'm trying to talk. But okay, so back to it. Staff responsibilities, right? So these are the 3 main categories that you're responsible for as a staff officer. At the battalion level, really the top 2 are the ones you need to worry about the most. And then we start hitting number 3 as we get into brigade. So number 1, support the commander. You need to understand, especially because I know there's a couple of you here and there that have been company commanders. You understand this more, but no one else does.
Can you go ahead and get your laundry put away before Mom comes back in?
In his head to be an expert in everything. There's so much floating around him.
She did all that laundry last night.
There is so many different aspects that have to be managed at a battalion level and above that there is no physical way a commander can know everything. That's why we have staff officers. And each staff officer, typically on primary staff, you own one warfighting function, or at least a major piece of a warfighting function. You're supposed to know all the ins and outs. That's why you're there to support and advise him and give him recommendations, or her recommendations. Sorry, coming from a new world, I'm going to say he a lot because I normally work with he's. Nothing personal. So you are there to own your warfighting function and be able to show your boss the ins and outs and all the minutia that no one else knows. Secondly, you're there to assist subordinate commanders, staff, and units. So again, at the battalion level, there are no subordinate staffs. Again, FM 6S0 is written for all levels in the Army. But subordinate commanders, in this case, we do have, right? We have company commanders. And It is very easy on staff to see company commanders, come swaggering in for command and staff or training meeting, all in a good mood, and then they roll out an hour or two later and go back to their companies where they're not sitting necessarily at their desk the whole time.
Put it away?
What you don't see is like just the soul-crushing amount of things they're dealing with all the time and all the things going on in their head. There's a lot, and it looks like there's not until you get in the hot seat yourself, and then you realize like, wow, this is a lot of stuff. When I was a commander, we had just an asshole AS3. I mean, he was just obnoxious and always thought he knew better than commanders. And then he took command, and he admitted to me a couple months later, he's like, dude, this is so much harder than I thought it was. I used to get so mad when a commander couldn't turn his training meeting slides in on time, and I just realized I'm 6 months into command, and I've yet to turn in my slides on time once. So there's a lot that happens. As a staff, you are supposed to be customer service oriented. The companies are your customers, and you're there to assist them. So we do that by providing them context.
Okay, but first,
be like, hey, this is why these things are coming down the pipeline. Or something's going to be in a frago, something's going to be in order. Give them a heads up, right? And tell them, like, hey, you might want to start prepping for this. Here's why it's happening. And we also try and shape what they're doing, right? We try and like not be scattershot across the staff, all trying to pull the company a million different ways. We should try and focus it into time blocks where, okay, Big XO works with the staff. We set up a time, hey, this week we're working towards this. And every staff section, if you're asking something from a company, it needs to be related to this. And then second part of that is we do work with other staffs, right? As a staff officer, you do not live in a vacuum.
I can't hear it, but I'm listening.
If you try and just like work in your cave for 9 months to a year before you go take command, you're probably just extending your staff time because no one knows who you are and no one's going to rush to get you into the command queue. And secondly, you're not doing yourself any favors because you are not out there networking and making friends and winning favors that are going to help you in command and also going to help your unit, right? Because you are, as a staff officer, when you're working with other staffs, like let's go say you're an S4 in a Combined Arms Battalion, you're the face for your battalion with all the other S4s, just like they're representing their battalion. So if you all play nice with each other, life will be much easier. The S4 Mafia ran deep in both brigades I was an S4 in because we knew we had to rely on each other in order to survive and deal with our sometimes extremely demanding battalion commanders. If you've been an S4 in a battalion, you understand what I'm talking about. You have to work with others, especially like if you go B next, if you're going to S3 and a BSB, right? You have to work with all of the other S3s in the brigade. They're all going to outrank you, but if you come in and you show you're trying, you essentially know what you're doing, you are actively working to support the brigade, and you can start playing favorites, right? Like, hey guys, I don't have golf or a master gunner that can teach my guys stuff for unstabilized gunnery. Can one of you help me out? And if you've done them favors before, right? You've worked in like, oh hey, their FSC screwed up, so guess what? Can we please get Alpha Distro Company to run us ammo? And you say, yeah, sure, right? You now owe them that favor, and they owe you. So you can get help for your unit that way. And then I'm not going to go too deeply into the last one because that, again, applies more above our level. Okay, so here is the super nerdy staff slide that I built. As you can see, it shows how battalion staff does not work in a vacuum. And as you can see, the more closer you hold information, the worse things are because it's red. And the more you push the information out, it turns green. There's a method to the madness, right? So again, number one, hey, your number one priority is supporting battalion commander, and two is dealing with brigade staff. Again, they're probably trying the best they can most of the time, but they don't always have context to what's happening at the battalion level. So you provide that feedback and those recommendations to both battalion commander and a brigade staff, and help them understand what the problem is and how to get after it. Two, like I just talked about, I just went pretty deep into networking and coordinating with adjacent staffs, and then again going back down to synchronizing the efforts of the brigade staff. I'm sorry, of the companies. My bad.
Because it feels good on his gums.
Okay. Okay, so staff duties. We're not going to go over all staff duties responsibilities. A couple I am going to hit on. So you will see performing risk management. So we know what risk management is in the sense of we've all done been a range OIC and we have to write everybody drinks water so we don't get dehydrated. That's not the type of risk we're talking about here, right?
Amelia,
you are looking at risk as a staff officer.
Get the underwear and put it away.
From the perspective of your warfighting function, right? So maybe again, I'm going to lean on S4 hard, right? Because that's where the bulk of my staff time is.
Throw it over there?
You may identify the risk hey, sir, if we take this route, there's only one bridge that can support the, and I'm talking from an IBCT here, right? There's only one bridge that can support a fueler, right? And if we lose that bridge, then we are basically cut off from Class 3 resupply. Whereas opposed to, and you point out, hey, sir, if we go with this course of action, we go this way, there are 2 to 3 different bridges we can utilize to get resupply through. That's the kind of risk we're talking about. Because, again, not everyone's going to look at it from the same way you are because you are, deep down in your warfighting function. So that's the kind of risk we're looking for, is the risk that others won't see because it doesn't necessarily pertain to what they're used to looking at. And then the second is perform intelligence preparation of the battlefield. We will go over that. We'll start hitting that tomorrow, but you can kind of guess what we're talking about here. It's analyzing the operational environment, and it's normally associated with the S2. And the S2 is the coordinator, right? They're the one, the driving force behind it. But FM 6-0 is clear, and as is ATP 2-01.3, that the S2 does not do this alone. It is staff integrated IPV, meaning that every warfighting function should have a representative looking at all the different aspects from their perspective and looking at it. So when we're looking at the enemy, right, enemy capabilities, S4, you may be looking at, hey, what are their sustainment capabilities, right, for the irregular threats, SAPA forces, right? And we can say, hey, they don't have much as a supply chain. They really have to focus off of the goodwill of the people, right? They have to be on people's good side to be able to give them food and medical supplies. So that's one way we look at it. Another way we may look at it is, what's the biggest threat to our sustainment, right, as the S4? And I'm immediately going to say, SAPA forces again, right? The irregular threat, the ones that can just blend away into the crowd and then come back with an RPG and shoot a PLS as it drives by. So, again, in a combined arms battalion, is the S3 overly concerned about a bunch of, irregular dudes with a couple of RPGs as opposed to, the mechanized infantry task force against him? He's going to worry about the mechanized infantry, right? But sustainers have to worry about, and people in the sustainment warfighting function need to focus on that irregular threat. So that's why we kind of integrate. I'm just hitting that now because people always seem to be that's the S2's problem, not mine. It's everyone's problem. Again, most of these are pretty self-explanatory once you start looking at it. Okay, there we go. Okay, staff officer characteristics. Again, I'm not going to hit all of these, but ones I want to look at. Again, number 1, competent in all aspects of areas of expertise. Again, especially as a logistician, right? If you go down to a combined arms battalion, cavalry squadron to be an S4, you are expected to know the ins and out of sustainment, not just logistics, but sustainment as a whole. And that goes with anything, right? You may be put in as the S3. Own your job, right? You need to own it. That goes right into number 2, individual initiative. As a primary staff officer, you are not going to be managed like you were as a platoon leader or really necessarily even an XO, right? Because there's just too many things going on. Your battalion XO has too much to worry about. The brigade planner, if that's where you're working, he's got too much to worry about. You have to be an adult and you have to figure out what needs to be done and jump on it.
Amelia.
Again, you're not lieutenants anymore. That excuse doesn't fly. The I do as I'm told and color where I'm told to color doesn't work anymore.
Amelia,
we've hit.
turn around.
I think discipline and self-confidence rolls right into that.
I want you to think
have
about
to
why
have
you're
the
sitting on your
confidence
bed.
in your own abilities
You're
to be able to
asking
speak
Indy
up
not
and be
to
like,
growl
"Sir, I
and
really
not to
don't
bite you.
recommend that."
And then this is how you're
It's his
treating
decision at the end of the day.
Okay, now go
Don't
sit on your
argue
bed.
with Commander, but you need to be able to have the confidence in the analysis you've done to say, "Hey, sir, that's not going to work, but here's another way to do it." Because we don't say no as staff officers. We just say, "I can't support that, but here's what I can do for you, and here's why."
Indy, what you doing, girl?
Flexibility. I can't tell you how many times as a combined arms battalion S4, I drew up plans to change our MTO from the old balanced MTO to the triangular redesign. And then brigade would just come and just like step on it and change everything. Can't tell you how many times I did it. It's gonna happen. Just roll with the punches. Like it's gonna, you're gonna do so much work on so many things that just get squashed in the end. Accept it, move on. And we've hit team players. Again, I'm not gonna. That's for your own benefit and your unit's benefit.
I had to wear a shirt I didn't even like.
Okay.
That sounds right.
Okay, so now we are rolling into the different staff jobs, right? I'm not going to hit all of them. We're not going to hit FSO too much or like engineer protection, but we're going to hit the key ones. Before we move into like the staff primaries, I want to talk the difference between XO and S3, because I'm sure there's a lot of you who've been out there that have worked for two majors.
Hang on just a sec.
I don't know why random person is calling me, but
so I decided to paint
that was weird.
But my sister left the top
someone inside this meeting was calling me. Hopefully it was just a messed up button. But okay, we've seen if you've been in a battalion where you've got two majors, not like a BSB where you've got like an XO as a major and then a captain who's the S3, but like actually two majors, you will see like this. Like sometimes they will just like slam heads together.
So I
and the XO is like, I'm in charge of the staff. I'm number 2 in the battalion, which is true. And then the S3 is like, well, I'm in charge of the order and I'm in charge of this plant, which is also true. So how do we delineate the responsibilities, right? Because you're going to run into this, and you're going to feel like I'm going to get into how XOs and S3s should kind of like work with each other and with the staff.
So I let the dog into play. My
mom
made me put.
And again, if two majors can't figure it out on their own, like I don't necessarily expect junior captains to automatically understand the dynamics of how to be a field grade staff officer.
Hi, baby.
So, like I said, XO, it's true.
But
you're number 2 in the battalion. And you are in charge of the staff. Your role is to synchronize all the different staff minus the 3-shot towards facilitating the maneuver plan in this case.
Where is Gideon?
And it's, if you were in a BSB, it would be making them work all towards fitting into the SPO or S3's plan on how to support the brigade, right? So it all revolves around whatever your warfighting function is. The 3 is managing how you're doing that warfighting function, and then everyone else is, and the XO is guiding how everyone else fits into that plan. So in this case, again, we're talking maneuver. So XO is making sure that the staff is all working together, minus the 3-shot, who is S3 owned.
She cried.
And understanding that they're fitting into the plan. So for example, XO, you don't make slides. If you are the XO for your small group, you're not there to make slides. You're not there to nug on stuff. And there's gonna be times where you're like Ricky Bobby telling nights, like, I don't know what to do with my hands. Like they're just like, I don't know what to do. This is uncomfortable. Because management can be uncomfortable, especially when we're used to like just cranking out stuff ourselves.
Canceled because the field was too wet.
You should be floating through different chats because the way our team is using it is that each staff section will have their own channel inside Microsoft Teams. So they will be able to go in, work together on that during the day. That allows XO, S3 to kind of pop in and see, like, hey, where are we at, right? So, for example, if as an XO, you pop into the sustainment chat, and you're like, hey, man, dude, what's going on? And your S4, S1 Meadow person is like, oh, just like setting up where LRPs are going to be. Excuse me, and you look at the LRPs and you see every LRP he's designed is dropped right where the S2 thinks that a SAPA ambush could be. Does that make any sense? Is that the staff working together and like knowledge management? No. So you're like, hey, like you want to rethink this? You want to not put an LRP right where we think that SAPA is going to try and destroy a sustainment convoy, right? So that's your job, right? You are hitting the friction points, and you're making sure that everyone understands what everyone else is doing and working towards the same goal. And we're going to get into that a little bit here at the end on how we kind of plan for COA, how the staff takes information, pushes it back to the 3 shop. But you're also XO managing the battle rhythm. So you're the one setting meeting times. You're the one setting deadlines on products. In this case, you do override the 3 a little bit, right? Because
part of my
the
job.
3 shop always, at least in the maneuver world, thinks they are the kings, right? They're the warfighters. They're the ones that are going out to win the battle. And then everyone else supports them, which is it's true to an extent. But they will hog all the planning time, straight up. They'll just be like, "Yeah, we'll get to you when we get to you." But then all the other warfighting functions sitting there I can't make a sustainment plan if I don't know what maneuver's doing. You have to give me something. And they're just like, no, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. You just sit in your corner, loggy nerd. I will plan this out, and then I will give it to you when I deign it is fit. They won't do that. So that's when the XO has to be like, no, timeline is this, right? This is when products are due. This is when we're doing a sync meeting, and that is okay. So again, peer leadership is the hardest form of leadership in this case. So people understand that your XO is generally trying to do the best that they can in this. I've yet to see an XO, as I float around different teams the last few phases, that's just I'm trying to screw somebody, right? Work with them. Try and help out, because it's not easy doing XO in this specific instance, especially over distance. Okay, so S3. Let's hit on that a little bit. So, let's see. Let's see.
You what?
Can't see all of your comment for some reason.
Bye.
Reyes Goins. Oh, there it is. So if you can pull up the chat, you can see. Reyes Goins says, I was in a CSSB where we had the SPO major in charge of the S3 SPO, called it the fusion cell, and Battalion XO in charge of the other staff sections. It was a little odd and wasn't always easy. So interesting point on that, right? Talking with, because I was in plans team before I came down to Common Core, and the belief there is that in reality, the SPO is the S3 for a BSB or a CSSB. Because really the SPO, so think of it as, right, the SPO is coming up with the sustainment plan for a brigade, right? They're planning all the efforts and basically moving all the pieces for a BSSB or BSB, or in your case, a CSSB, which is exactly what an S3 does in a maneuver battalion. But we delineate it because in a BSB or a CSSB, because the 3 runs training and tasking. So what you've really done is you've separated one job into 2. So it's really not that weird if you think about it. Yeah, interesting point. Okay. So S3, transitioning back, right? So the S3 has his own little staff. It's almost, really, I say little, it's almost as big in some cases, and has as many officers as the Battalion XO has for officers. So the S3 is going to own the maneuver plan and the order and anything that comes out related to that order. The S3 is the one that's making sure it all kind of funnels together. The orders don't contradict each other. And he's also going to own some of the subordinate warfighting functions. And the best way I can tell you, and what I figured out, is the reason some staff officers fall under the S3 and some fall under XO is because the ones that fall under S3 do not have a garrison function. So, for example, the fire support officer does not have a garrison function. There's nothing he does that because the S2, right? The S2 is doing all those security checks, and background checks and arms room inspections. Got a garrison function, so he falls under XO. The Seaburn officer, is nothing Seaburn related. They just do USR, right? So they just sit there under the S3 shop. So that's why they kind of own them like that. But you are making the plan, right? You are owning the shop that makes the plans. Those AS3s are the workhorses for a battalion. You own them, make sure they're making that plan right. Then you kick it over to the other staff members, and they make a plan that supports that from their warfighting function. Then it comes back to the S3, and the S3 is like, yep, this all makes sense. Generally, he's going to trust the battalion XO, who actually kind of knows what those other warfighting functions are doing better, and that they all line up. So again, you own AS3s, and you're going to have to work with these other staff members. You're going to have to work with the S2 when it comes to targeting and making sure that, like, hey, does my plan meet up with what you think the enemy's going to do? But you don't own them, and you don't coordinate their efforts. Any questions on XO versus S3 before I move on? Because that's always the biggest sticking point, and even in real units. Okay, if one pops up on the chat, then I'll come back and answer it. Oh, let's see, someone reply. Porty, what you got? Thanks, Porty. Okay, so staff officers again. We're going to run through these. The ones you're not going to see, or are not going to talk about, are the S8, which is again brigade and above, and it's like one dude that sits in a hole and doesn't know anything about what a brigade does, but somehow has the ability to deny your funding. And then the civil affairs dude who will come down to you on deployment. Okay, so S1 in this case, right? So you see the list of things they do responsibility-wise. In this case, in operational world, like in actual tactical environment, they're worried about the manning. So they're going to look at like, hey, sir, like they can be briefing like, hey, Alpha Company is 86% on 11 Bravo infantrymen, and Bravo Company is at like 76%. So why does that matter, right? Because if we need a mission that's infantry heavy and there's more casualty producing, probably need to send Alpha Company, right? Because they're at a better position. And they can do that. That's a super basic example of the kind of manning analysis that is done when we start talking that. But you don't have to worry about that, right? Because you're going to start 100% manning and 100% strength on combat power. So the S1, there's not a whole lot you need to worry about for this specific operation. Yeah, as you can see, I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Again, the S1 is normally focused more on the garrison side, and then again, in the tactical side, it's manning, strength, and then just general accountability. Not S2. Okay, so you're the one doing it all, right? Like mission analysis is the worst part of being an S2, hands down, worst part of being an S2. So if you're targeting the S2, just know once you get through step 2 of mission analysis, then it's a lot easier. So you can see, you can read the definition, but you are the one that is like taking in all of this data and turning it into information. You are not doing IPB alone. You are coordinating the efforts of everyone, and you are taking their stuff based and mixed with what your staff shop came up with, and you're prioritizing what goes into that brief, what the boss needs to know, because again, you're not going to be able to brief everything. Yeah. We brief what's important and what affects the mission, and that's really your job. As you can see during planning, right? So you're hitting that 4 things we need for understanding the operational environment. So terrain, weather, civil, and enemy. Those 4 things. You're doing all those assessments, gathering the data along with the other staff, and then making it a coherent product to be used in identifying those so whats.
Dirty diapers.
And we will work together, S2s. Don't worry. I know this is way outside of most of y'all's wheelhouse. That's okay. We're going to do syncs periodically throughout the exercise where we talk about like how we get after this. Okay, S4. So in this specific case, S1, S4, and Beto are all combined into one position. Really, typically as an S4, especially if you're going to be an S4 post-career course, you're going to be kind of managing the Meadow and to an extent the S1 anyway, because they just need it. But in this environment, you're all 3 at the same time. So how do we take all those aspects, 3 aspects of sustainment, and roll them together and make it a coherent plan that supports the battalion? that's you. That's what we're looking at, right? So we're looking at LRPs, AXBs, roll one locations, when we're going to resupply, not just the where, but the when, and then what we anticipate, like the forecasting, right? So that's what we are concerned with. Okay, S6. So planning wise, it's not like you have a ton to plan, right? You're worried about the comms plan, right? So our PACE plan, right? Primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. We are worried about how the FM ranges, how's the terrain mess with our communications, where do we place our retrans teams, stomp. Like, you have retrans capability. You are going to have to use it. So S6, you're the one planning, where do we put that retrans team? I'm not going to get into how you do it because you need to do some research. And then you're also going to be where those command nodes go. Like, where do I recommend the top goes? Where do I recommend, the TAC be? You'll get overridden on the TAC pretty much all the time because commanders can be like, it's my TAC, I'm going to tell you where it's going to go. But you do plan where command nodes go. And then lastly, and most importantly in this case, right, the S6 does all the knowledge management. S6, if you do not keep track of things, people are going to copy over each other's work. They're going to lose the final brief. They're going to erase half of someone else's work, and it's going to be madness because version control is going to get insane. So you need to have folders built, like, hey, here's everyone's personal folder. Here's the master folder. Here's our naming convention for products. So we don't have, like, S2 MA V3.5, and I'm like, what is version 3.5? How do you have a 3.5 version? But only the S2 knows, and you can't get on the phone with that dude, so we don't know as we try and compile the final brief. Prevent that from happening, right? Own it, S6. Own knowledge management. Like, that's like the biggest tip I can give you, all of you, for doing this online, is you have to be methodical and organized, or it's just not going to work out. So, last slide, if it will switch for me. Cool. Okay, give me a second, guys. For some reason, it's just not switching slides.
No, I'll come with you. Griffin, please don't wait until it's an emergency.
Like, this slide actually matters because it gives you a good visual. There we go. Okay, here we go. Staff synchronization, right? So, we do IPB, we do our running estimates. We'll get into running estimates later. And you can see I kind of give examples of, like, hey, here's all the different things that go into our running estimates and our staff analysis. We feed that to the 3-shot, right? So we give them the major so whats. Here are the factors that you need to plan around, and then they plan, right? So then we can come back with the maneuver plan. They get it done. Goes back to the staff. Staff digests it, understands what they're saying, and then they go into, okay, now that the maneuver guys have based a plan around all the factors in the operational environment that we have identified, now we have to build our plan for our warfighting function to support that maneuver plan. So again, that's when S4 you're going and saying, like, okay, based off my forecast, we would need to resupply about here. We'll do unit distribution from an LRP. Good. Okay, we expect this to be one of our casualty producing areas, which means roll 1 needs to be relatively close, so we'll put it here. Right? That's my super rough example. And then it goes back to the S3 again. We make sure it's all nested. Again, after the XO's checked it, so it should be. And then bam, Bob's your uncle. There's your course of action. That's now going to get briefed to the boss. So that's a down and dirty on how we kind of function as a staff, some professional development versus what we need to know for this class. What are your questions? In fact, it's 9:36. What I'm going to do is a 4-minute break, right? So if you have questions, type them into the chat window. I'll address them. And if there are no questions, at 9:40 we will roll into receipt of mission, which is pretty quick, and then we'll drive on. So again, I see I already got one question rolling in, and I'll look at it and I will answer it at 9:40 Washington. So thank you for asking, All right, 4 minutes. Do what you need to do. Arms battalion example. So they fall into 3-shot because they're typically like an enabling warfighting function, not a primary warfighting function. So someone else asked, like, hey, what should I be focused on as the engineer officer? So if you've read 101, you should have already kind of got the idea that we're going to be doing a breach, right? And if we have a breach that needs to be done, probably means we're going to have a engineer support platoon attached to us. So you are the subject matter expert, right, on how we plan for that. How do we use them? You are going to be looking at infrastructure, like how you asked. And when we start looking at IPB, right, in mission analysis, yeah, you can start looking. You worry about that, but you're also, what are these obstacles made of? How are we going to breach them using those assault breacher vehicles, and generally just being the expert on what combat engineers bring to the table. That's really. You're also going to look at in your role. I don't know if your SGL split up CBRN versus engineering. I just kind of rolled them together as a protection cell. And so I've got 2 dudes that are both CBRN engineer. If they want to delineate those duties, they can. Or if they want to work on them together, they can. So the way my team's doing it is, again, like they're going to be worried about that in the engineering side. They also have to worry about the CBRN side. So we're planning where do we need to have our decon points based off of analysis of where the enemy may use chemical weapons. How are we getting to those decon points, right? We have to have dirty routes. We can't use our clean routes if we're covered in chemical agents, because now we've just dirtied a whole route. So now it's no longer clean. So we have separate dirty routes. All those things are kind of playing into the protection cell. So, okay, cool. Glad I answered it, Washington. Okay, so now we're transitioning from kind of like how to just generally be on a staff to like the actual military decision-making process. I'm going to tell you now, you are going to get frustrated. Like, you are going to get super annoyed, if not angry at times. It is going to just, like, you're going to be sick of this. I'm just telling you now. It is not because this is poorly designed or your instructor is intentionally not helping you or is lazy. This is all falls under, and the way this course is built is around what's called the experiential learning model, ELM, or that's the Army name for it. They ripped off a civilian company that came up with this whole model called the adult learning model. And step 1 of that is concrete experience. So the reason we do concrete experience first, practical exercise or whatever, is because you gain something by trying to work on it first. You gain an experience, right? So now when we teach it later on, we go back after like the mission analysis brief, for example, right? And we start looking at like, okay, here's how we could have done this better. Here's what we were looking for, blah, 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 blah. You can now link it to something like that makes more sense. I understand now, because while this comes at the end of Common Core, right? This is really the concrete experience for the rest of your time here at NCCTD. So it is because you're going to go into more in depth on this. And in log phase, for example, you're going to start focusing more on mission analysis, right? How do we do mission analysis from a logistics perspective? That's sustainment, preparation, the operational environment. But in order to do that, and then in plans, you're going to go further, not just do mission analysis. You're going to plan it all soup to nuts, right? You're going to support an entire brigade combat team, and you're going to do it twice, and then you're going to do it once completely by yourself. So what this experience is giving you is, 1, you need to understand who you're supporting to be able to support them effectively, which is why you're doing this as a combined armed staff. 2, MDMP is really it is really focused on the maneuver aspect. I mean, there's no denying it. The way it is set up, the way it is worded, it is all focused on maneuver units doing decision making. So if that's the case, we don't need to throw you into log phase and especially plans phase and say, okay, here is this complex planning process. We modified it to fit really sustainment needs. And now we're going to teach you how we tweaked it without ever teaching you how to do it the base way, right? So this is the base model MDMP. This is the unmodified Army version. And then once you get into log and especially plans, we start looking at here how in CCTD, log C3, how we made it fit sustainment better. But you can't understand that until you understand the base model. So that's what we're getting at here. No one expects you to come out of this with the plan that General Patton would have come up with, right? The point of this is, can you understand the process? Can you do research on your own and really figure out how things work, right? You're a captain, right? We're not here to spoon feed you. So you have to be able to do research and get comfortable learning things that you don't know already. And then can you just really understand the maneuver plan better? So if you work hard and you put the analysis in, at least for my class, if you're putting the analysis in, you're going over the rubric to make sure you hit the points, you clearly put thought in, the grade is not going to be a problem, right? That's not going to be an issue here. Because again, I don't expect something worthy of Patton. But I do expect you to act like captains and put in an analysis and the research to come up with a usable product and gain enough experience to be able to keep climbing like the ladder of complexity as you move on in this course. So, okay, I think I've hit that point hard enough. This is not a weird setup. There is a method to the madness. That's really what I'm getting at. Okay, so receipt of mission, right? Sounds easy enough in name, and it is. It is easy enough, right? This is where we're figuring out who we are and what we are. I'm not going to have you do a practical exercise on how to plant an officer's call. Learning objective, yep. We're here to learn receipt of mission. Outline, there you go. Okay, so purpose of receipt of mission, right? It's to alert all the participants that there's, hey, we got to plan something, right? And like, ring the bell, sound the klaxon, whatever, honk the horn, like it's like Ron Burgundy, like news team assemble, like that kind of thing. And then we start determining our time requirements and how we're going to plan. So Porty. Okay. Can someone else confirm that the slides are not showing up? Because Porty's saying no one else sees them.
I can
Yes, sir. I don't see them neither.
This is Lieutenant Adwell. I can see them just fine.
I can see them, sir.
I can't see them.
Sir, I cannot see it.
Okay, so here's what's going to happen. Looks like we got a good mix. Thank you all for the responses. I'm going to stop presenting and then pull them up again real quick. So maybe that will fix it. If not, you should be able to see them on Blackboard. Again, these slides, if there's one slide deck I'm not overly concerned about you seeing, it's this one. So let me pull it up. It's coming. Okay, how are we looking? If you could not see them before, can you see them now?
Do not jump on the ground like that. Thank you. It's too loud for Gideon, and it's too rough on the trailer.
No, sir, I cannot see it.
Interesting. Okay, so if you look in...
They're also posted under files.
Oh, yeah.
In chat.
You should be able to see them. Okay,
Now you can go get a Q-tip out of the bathroom and draw on a Q-tip.
oh, is that you, Chaplain, that's sharing?
No, that's not me.
Okay. Yeah, so don't take control of the slide presentation, please. Okay. Browse teams and channels. Yeah, so if you go to like the files, you should see this presentation in there, because once I upload it, you can pull it yourself. And I pulled the wrong deck. Cool. Well, now we're just completely derailed. This is why I like being at ALU better. So I don't run into this crap. Okay, so pulling it up. Oh, God. Replace. Okay, so if you are following along on your own slide deck, since I couldn't and you couldn't see it, I'm currently on slide 5.
Thanks.
So we'll pick up. Okay, so again, we roll right back into purpose. Alert the staff, determine how much time we have and how we're going to plan. And then commander says, are we going to do full MDMP, slim down MDMP, or are we going to do design methodology? Spoiler alert, you're going to do full MDMP here. So, okay, so key inputs, yeah. I'm on slide 6 now. So, yes, you have to have hires order before you could start planning. So in this case, you should have already read 101. You should already know your staff position. And then 102 should drop right after this. So you should see 102 available on Blackboard, and then somewhere into the day time frame, whole order should drop. And we'll get to how we break that up here at the end. Okay, slide 7. So receipt of mission, here are the processes: alert, gather the tools, update running estimates, initial assessment, initial guidance, and the initial warning order. So, yeah, I'm not going in to alert the staff because it's pretty obvious how we do that. Okay, so now I'm on slide 9. Gather the tools, right? So we have to, this is the step that is most important for you guys for receipt of mission. Because, again, a real staff, they've already been working together. They know their function. They know their role. They know what's around them, who they got, what type of unit they are. You essentially know none of that. So that is why gathering the tools is like the most important thing you're going to do. First things first, you need to understand your unit and who's in it, right? So I think every instructor has SM or MCO SM 3-90, so Maneuver Center of Excellence Student Manual 3-90, which is a visual depiction of the current MTO for an ABCT. So that is very helpful. But that is not the be-all, end-all, right? So the actual MTO supersedes that. And the SM 3-90 is a good visual representation, right? So it helps you understand the so what of the big picture. Some minor things have changed, right? The amount of nods may be different. The amount of M4s or PSQ20s versus PBS 14s, that may have changed. But like vehicle-wise, manning-wise, it's basically right. So looking at the MTO, looking at 3-90, and understanding, A, getting a picture of what a Combined Arms Battalion looks like as a whole, and then B, looking at it from our warfighting function and like, what do I need, right? What do I need to understand? So like as an S2, for example, you probably should understand how many shadows a brigade combat team has, right? The UAV for surveillance, reconnaissance surveillance. You should probably understand how many Ravens we have. S6, how many retrans teams does a Combined Arms Battalion have? What does, if you're the S6, S3 Air, what does an air weapons team consist of, right? That's not in a brigade, but you're going to have that, and you need to like understand what that means. And so, again, that's how we start looking at it from our warfighting function. What do we bring to the table? What can I plan for that will help enable the maneuver plan? You can start looking at maps and graphics. So I will tell you now, I purposely did not give you, because I built this order, I purposely did not give you all the imagery you're going to need. You need to go find that imagery. A great place to do it is map.nga.mil. So it is linked. It is one of the links at the top of this group, right? You'll see Odin, which is also important, and we'll get to that later. But map.nga, .mil, you need a CAT card reader, and just don't use your email certificate. You can use any other certificate, and you can pull all kinds of imagery from all different sources. It is super useful. It is super intuitive, and you need to get into that. I can tell you now, the MAKU you're going to get is not very good. It is purposely not very good, right? If a Brigade 2 shop gave you that, like, you should smack them in the face. But again, this is to get you to do MAKU. It gives you a starting point, and it's there to get the ball rolling on that, right? So we need more imagery for that. So that goes back into maps, terrain, and such. Start looking through the hires intel assessment, what they see, who the enemy is, how they see them operating, all that kind of thing. And then we're not going to worry too much about running estimates today, right? We will worry about running estimates. We get into mission analysis tomorrow. Right now, today, you need to be focused on understanding who we are and who you are specifically. So what the unit is, what they've got, what they can do, and then what your job is, not only, and what they bring to the fight. Okay, so running estimates, again, these are the things that go into running estimates. We will go more into depth on these different aspects tomorrow. So again, you can start looking at friendly forces available and capabilities, because like that's talked about, like that's knowing your warfighting function, what they can do. Here is an example of a running estimate slide. I'm on slide 12, by the way, if you're on your own slide deck, sorry. So here's what I don't recommend doing. I don't recommend doing all of this on one slide. For example, enemy capabilities and the, crap, I can't read that. All the stuff in red, right? So enemy capabilities, because that is part of your IPB, right? Let the two-shot brief all the IPB, and then you focus on stuff that is pertinent to the unit and you. There's no reason to break down all that IPB up, right? Okay, initial assessment. So we start looking at planning timeline, right? The planning timeline is laid out for you for the big briefs, right? So the major muscle movements and transition between steps, that is done for you. Just look at the class calendar. I'm sure your instructor has given it to you. If not, ask for it. But again, I'm sure you have the main class schedule. And you can literally see, like, here's when we're getting, the class on whatever. Here's when I have to do my brief. Here's when we transition to the next step. What it doesn't tell you is how do we make progress on a good timeline inside of that step. There is something on Blackboard and SharePoint that Captain Chappa put together called Daily Deliverables, and it kind of gives you that breakdown of we should have this done, at the end of this day, this done at the end of that. So that is a good way forward. This is also when you start looking at battle rhythm stuff, right? EXO, we should start looking at, as we do this, when do we need to have our rehearsals for these briefs? When do we need to do our daily syncs? Because again, you do not want to mess with people's productivity. So we don't just do a meeting. We want to say hey, meeting in 30 minutes, guys, because people plan out their days, when they're going to work, when they're going to focus heavy on something, when they're going to break, come back, look that over, be a little lighter afternoon maybe. That's all laid out in their head. So the staff is owed that predictability, and that's when we start looking at these battle rhythms. You should really meet, I would say, no more than twice a day. I can tell you, for at least my team, the way I'm going to do it is 1300 is their sync with me, and I'll answer questions. We do face-to-face link up, and so that time is blocked off. Any other times they want to do meetings, again, I recommend no more than twice daily on top of that. There will be some days, and it won't be till probably Thursday will be the first one, I think, for a sync meeting, and that will be XOs, S2s, and S3s, just those three people from each team. Everyone else can keep working. That's just so we make sure y'all are tracking. We need to do any burning questions y'all have. chances are some other group has that burning question, so we can answer them all in the same place, kind of get a baseline. So we'll do that. So count on those things.
He got you. He wins.
Okay. So initial commander's guidance. You're not going to get too much, right? Because there's not too much that needs to be done right now. Your initial time allocation is given to you by your calendar. How to abbreviate MDMP, you're not. There's no LNOs to exchange. So basically, like, yeah, there you go. There's your initial commander's guidance. Okay, issue the warning order. So you do need to have a 101 done. At least my team 3, you'll have it done by the end of the day. It is not hard, promise. 101 is super easy, right? Type operation, like it's already in brigade's order, right? Brigade, you can use brigade's format. A lot of this is just like cutting out stuff that doesn't pertain to 2-7. So that initial timeline should already be given to you, and then really information collection. I'm not too concerned about that one unless it's in the order, because y'all don't know enough about information collection to be able to have it planned at this point. There you go, warning order format. All right, outputs are, again, that initial allocation of time, commander's initial guidance, and then 101. Okay, so before we get to questions, again, here's what today should look like, right? We've already done 101. We should know our staff position. 102 should be out right at the end of this, okay? Everyone reads through 102 and starts. After that, we understand kind of where we're at in life. We start looking into our staff position. So what am I responsible for? What are my duties? What do I owe the rest of the staff and the commander? And then what does my warfighting function bring to the fight inside of the brigade combat team or any attachments? And so that's what your day should look like. And then 101, which again is super easy to pop out. At the end of today, the op order will drop. At some point, mid to late afternoon. Once that drops, right, there's too much information for everyone to read through and digest well, right? So tailor it to everyone reads the op order, everyone reads Annex C, right? Because the op order gives us like the overall scheme. Annex C gives us like, hey, here's what every unit's doing graphically depicted in this case. So that way everyone knows the operation. Beyond that, read your annex as it's assigned, right? So there's an Annex F for S4, S1, Meadow. There is a lot of S2 products for Annex B for the S2 shop to read, and then so on and so forth. There's no like Annex sorry, I've been talking for a while now. There's no Annex H for signal, so you got to work with what you got in paragraph 5. But you can look at like engineers, scheme mobility, right? What does that mean for us? Fires, there's an Annex D, right? So we need to start looking at like, okay, when do I have fires priorities? What targets are allocated to me? And then what air assets, right? S3 air, that's on you, right? What do we have related to fixed wing and rotary wing assets to help us out in this mission, and when? And that's how we start getting after it. So tomorrow morning, 09, same bat time, same bat channel, we'll roll into mission analysis, and then also the first 2 steps of intelligence preparation of the battlefield. And then after that, y'all get cranking on mission analysis. We'll start going to the rest of it, those running estimates. But don't get too concerned about that right now today. So what questions do y'all have at this point?
No, that was you. Because he was hitting it to you and you didn't catch it and you let it fall on the floor. If you do it towards him and he doesn't catch it and it falls on the floor, you get a point. But if he...
Okay, so... Oh, there's somebody... Stokes, can I get with you offline? Yeah, sure, that's fine. I can do that. So if you have any questions, like for me specifically, and you can just have your SGL text me the question or whatever. Yeah, so Porty, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Let me go back to Teams real quick. So if you look at the top, if you go back to just the general post of this page, you'll see at the top map.nga.mil, and that's a link to it right there. Right along with Odin, we'll get into later. And then someone else just texted. Oh, yep. Snow was just responding to that. Okay. So if that, again, hey, Warno, so
say everything we're doing today instead of
Herrera's question, as in where do we submit the warlord? That is dependent upon your team. So you don't have to, so that my answer, don't worry about that, Herrera. We'll talk about that here in just a minute.
no, they just let us do today.
Yeah, you're all guidance from your SGL. The SGL is the tower in this case, on where they want Warnos to go and all that kind of thing. So,
because you just hit me.
Okay, again, if you have any specific questions for me, you can either save them till tomorrow. If it's a burning question, please go to your SGL and your SGL can ask me. And then, or you can just hit me up directly in the chat for this. But again, please, I will do this specifically after a lecture. But please don't just like randomly text me from a different group in here like throughout this entire tweak process, because there's like 70 of y'all. So please kind of refine it to your SGL, unless it's immediately after a lecture. So okay. Team 3, meet me in our normal team chat, class instruction meeting at 10:15, and then everyone else have a good day.
You have 2 in your hands. No, the little one's Gideon's, the big one's Christian's.
Sorry about that.
We can't see them though. If you open it up, I see them.
All right. Well, there you go. You guys can see the position. So while I unmess this up, or I'll just talk you through it. So if you guys go to the Google Drive, you can see the MDMP folder. MDMP lesson slides, that's going to have everything in there as far as the classes go that Captain Williams was talking about today. And that'll break up into, sorry, I'm on my other computer now. That'll break up into each block of instruction. So today you guys got the staff roles and responsibilities as well as receipt of mission. And so you'll see that all of that in there. Mr. Hackett, I don't know if you want to share your screen, if you can pull up the Google Drive since mine
Yep, I will.
not working.
I will. Hold on.
Thanks. Awesome.
Here we go.
Awesome. So yeah, student folder. MDMP. And then yeah, if you can pull up the class positions real quick, Mr. Hackett, so everybody can see all the way down at the bottom. Team 4 MDMP.
Oh yeah. Okay. There we go.
So here are the class positions for everybody. EXO is going to be Alex. So Alex, after everybody signs off of this, if you can stay on with Mr. Hackett and I, we can kind of go over, some additional information. But here's how it's going to be broken down. So if you guys did listen to the staff roles and responsibilities, you kind of know where you're sitting at right now. If you can scroll down a little bit, Mr. Hackett, so they can see the S3 air. There we go. Yeah. So if you guys have questions about this, just let me know. But really, kind of how UTM was. Alex is going to be the XO for this. So you're gonna kind of listen to everything from him. If Mr. Hackett and I have stuff to put out, we'll get with him. You guys are still going to be getting classes throughout the week, but he's going to be basically coming up with the schedule and how he wants you guys to kind of work together as a group. Obviously with random input from us as needs be. So those are the positions. Mr. Hack, if you don't mind closing out of that real quick. Not out of Google Drive, just, yeah.
Hold up. Yeah, let me get back in. Hold on.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So the daily deliverables slide, that's right above your MDMP class positions. That's what Kevin Williams was talking about a little bit earlier. All of your resources for MDMP are going to be here. So he was talking about a couple of websites you can go to, how to get some maps. All of that is right here. So this is going to be huge for you guys, reading just about your specific areas and going and finding maps. If you scroll down, the information you need to know on day one. So kind of how Captain Williams talked about, you guys aren't going to go into your running estimates yet. What you need to do is read. If you haven't read the Warno, you definitely need to go do that. You guys need to watch the breach video. It's under the Warno tab. It's like a 19-minute video, and it's on YouTube called How to Conduct a Breach. That's going to literally show you exactly what you guys are going to be doing, and how you guys are going to do it. So you go through Warno 1, read the products, watch the How to Conduct a Breach video. There's a Road to War video. If you can't pull it up on the Google Drive for whatever reason, everything's also in Blackboard. I just dropped Warno 2, so you guys can go ahead and read that. But basically, day one, you want to know who you are, and what your mission is, which is going to be conducting a breach. And then the day one deliverables are here. So you guys are going to do a Warno based on the Warno 1 and 2, and I'll drop the order. I'll text Alex when we do drop the actual order with all the additional annexes. But basically focus on slide 3 and slide 4. So slide 3 are who are we, basically, and then the slide 4 is day one deliverables. And then this is kind of your timeline, if you will, on what you should be focusing on each day, because there's a lot that you guys have to, a lot of inputs and outputs throughout. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, Mr. Hackett, at the end of the slideshow, it's going to show you, that's kind of small, but you guys can see it, your key inputs. So what you guys are going to be, discussing through class with Captain Williams, the steps. So tomorrow he'll actually do, today was the receipt of mission, so step 1, and then it's going to show you what your outputs are. And so this is also kind of just following the MDMP steps, what to expect throughout. All right, Mr. Hackett, if you can go back and get out of this particular slide deck.
Okay.
I just want everybody to know where it is. So when we talk about daily deliverables, you guys know where it's at. All right, so yep, Warno 1 and 2 are in there. The Team 4 class products, that folder's empty. But like Captain Williams was saying, that's going to be your knowledge management. So the S6 team will kind of help manage that, because it does get extremely busy and chaotic with multiple people trying to update products, merge products together. So everything that you guys are going to do, please put into that folder, and then obviously you guys make subfolders as need be. But what we don't want is you guys overwriting what's already in the Google Drive for everybody. Your resources and helpful products. So here, all of your product formats that you guys are going to use are going to be in here. These are A way, not B way. But when you guys actually start doing your running estimates tomorrow, that's going to be, it's the third from the bottom. You have your written warning order format, so you can use that today. Those are your warfighting function, or your running estimates per warfighting function. like you guys saw, you guys are broken up into S shops, but when you guys are actually conducting this, you need to work together as a warfighting function, not solely, hey, I'm only S2. So that's going to be huge. Can you close out, Mr. Hackett, please? That's going to be huge for when you guys are actually coming together, because it's, you know, when you guys are working solely in your S shops, you're going to be kind of missing the bigger picture with coming together for that. Yep. So everything else, like I said, when you guys start to actually come up and make your products, go in here, please, for your formats. Your first actual brief isn't going to be until Wednesday, the 27th of May, and that's your mission analysis brief. So you'll have the format in here, and you can use this. You guys, again, will produce a Warno, and the format for that is in here as well, and that'll just be emailed to Mr. Hackett and I, as well as dropped into the Google Drive. All right, if you can get out of this, Mr. Hackett. If you click, nope, not that one. If you go back and click out of mission analysis, because that'll just keep getting you out of the Google Drive. All right, and go back to resources and helpful products, please. Also, I have a folder for everybody. So the XO, Alex, once this is over with, you'll go into your XO folder and we'll talk to you about that. The request for support, RFS. So if you guys are going through, this is obviously for future. You guys aren't going to do anything now, but once you see all the assets you have, you see your attachments, detachments, and you want additional support, you guys can fill out requests for support. S2, you'll have some IPB information. You don't have to click through those, Mr. Hackett. I'm just trying to go through it real quick. So if you can go back. Yep, just click on resources, helpful products. Over. Nope.
Oh.
Yep. Or hit the back arrow. Thanks. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
We don't need to click through all these.
Okay.
So each S shop can go through and actually look at some additional products that are going to be helpful specifically for you. If you go back to the MDMP folder. All right, the rubrics are in here. So XO, that's going to be huge for you. You have to, you're going to be doing your mission analysis brief, your code development brief, your op board brief, and then you're actually going to be submitting a written order. The rubric is going to be the key to success. We've said that multiple times, but as the XO, kind of like Captain Williams said, you're not going to be in charge of actually making products, but you're going to be bringing them all together and making sure everything flows. So your job is to go through the rubric and make sure you guys are actually hitting everything in here. If you can go back. Just see, Mr. Hackett, where it says, yep, that arrow. There we go. Back to MDMP. Nope. Yep, click on the MDMP folder. And then, yeah, the lesson slides, I think I already went over those. Those are just going to be everything that Captain Williams is teaching throughout. So if you guys need to go back and reference it, or you guys weren't able to see it, or the screen went blank or whatever, you guys can go in here and actually look through the lesson slides that he taught today. I think that is it. Unless, Mr. Hackett, you have anything. That was just kind of like the quick deep dive of where everything's going to be located for you all. Yeah, other than that, that's all I've got. Alex, obviously, if you don't mind staying on after this, so we can kind of give you a little bit more information.
Roger, ma'am. Roger, ma'am.
All right, sweet. So if there are no other questions, from here, everybody should go. If you have not read Warno 1 and you've not seen the How to Conduct a Breach YouTube video and the Road to War, go do that, as well as go read Warno 2. And then I'm sure Alex will be getting in touch with you guys after after we talk to kind of go from there.
I've got a question, ma'am.
Yeah, what's up?
What battalion are we supposed to be?
You will find that in the warnos. So you gotta read through those and find out exactly who you are.
Roger, ma'am.
Yep, it'll be in there.
Thanks.
I'll give you a hint. You've seen it before, and you've already done a lot of the legwork as far as who that organization is, as well as the country you're going to be operating in. So all those practical exercises we've done before for BCT capabilities, your frame the operational environment, all of that kind of ties into this.
Yeah, that's probably did that last PE on the operational environment.
Any other questions for the good of the group?
I'm going to make a comment. We are going to set up a Teams account. It's going to call Team for MDMP, and I'll make some channels based on what Captain Williams is doing, and we'll just have that as a backup because about 3 or 4 of your key players here don't have CVR accounts. But that if we want to use that for a working group type thing, if we do get the accounts, that's going to be there anyway. But we're going to work through Zoom. We're going to continue working through Zoom, so nobody panic. But you'll be working log phase in Teams, and we just went, and Captain Williams is going to be working exclusively through Teams. So it's there if we want to, but that's the XO's call. Okay? That's all.
Yep. All right, so if there's nothing else for everybody, if Alex, you don't mind just staying on, and we will see you guys officially tomorrow. Well, yeah, tomorrow at 9, you guys are gonna have another class from Captain Williams.